You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. Here we go. We hope you're having a great week. Welcome to the Last Breath Huntcast, episode number 148, presented by Badlands Gear. For anything Badlands Gear related, you can get 30% off their site. Anything from packs, waders, uppers, lowers, bibs, hats, you name it, they got it. And I'm going to take advantage of this discount code myself because I'm going to be buying myself a brand new Artemis 2-man tent here soon for my camping trip out to Wyoming when one of my buddies, Adam, and I go fly fishing this summer. So that code is Last Breath 22BL30. There's a lot of characters there, so I'll repeat it again. Last Breath 22BL30. All of those characters are uppercase, and there are no spaces in that. This podcast is also presented by Outdoor Edge Gear. Using the code LBTV25, all uppercase, no spaces, you can get yourself off 25% off site-wide of anything Outdoor Edge related, which they make some just phenomenal cutlery. We've been using it for the better part of the last decade, and it's really great stuff. It's an American company that stands by its customers, and their owner is just a really good guy, hard-nosed, old-school businessman. His name is David, and we have a lot of respect for him as well. So our topic today, we're going to clarify some things about Illinois House Bill 4386. Luckily for me, I don't know shit about guns, but Garrett does. So we talked about this podcast in episode number 130 when we brought up the three new pieces of legislation that could possibly be run through the Illinois House. And here is Bill 4386. This is actually a bill in which we talked about in episode 130 that actually did come to fruition. It was signed into law. So before we get into that, Garrett is here with me. What are your initial thoughts on what this is going to do before we get into it?
Well, it's interesting, and it's interesting if you go and look at the progression of the bill. It was actually amended twice, and it was signed into law by our fat-ass governor on the 27th. I'm sure he had no idea what he was even signing.
He's a physical specimen. How dare you?
Yep, he is playing a heavy hand, and the reason why gas is 60 to 80 cents higher across the river from Iowa. But anyway, that's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother novel. If you go and look this up, HB 4386, I'm going to read exactly what was signed into effect on the 27th of May. And so this says replaces everything after the enacting clause. So essentially this is the amendment that was signed. Amends the Wildlife Code, defines centerfire and single shot, allows a person to take a single shot centerfire rifle during the open season set by the Director of Natural Resources. Limits legal handguns and rifles to centerfire handguns that are either single shot or revolvers, and, this is the important part, centerfire rifles that are single shot only. Limits legal ammunition for centerfire handgun, which is the same as it has always been. Okay, mm-hmm. When you're talking to me, it's going to get into casing length. That's for handguns, okay?
Yep.
Of 30 caliber or larger with a case length not exceeding 1 2/5 inches. What this is eliminating for you that are going, well, why'd they limit the case length? It's Thompson Center, and there's a couple other manufacturers make single-shot rifle handguns that can shoot quite literally 300 Win Mag, 30-06. So it's preventing people to be able to use these extremely high-powered single-shot handguns. It's pretty much limiting you to a handgun load. Mm-hmm. Some of the most popular are going to be 357, 44 Magnum, 454 Casull, 460 Magnum, and the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. So after this, it goes to the rifle calibers. A straight-walled centerfire cartridge of 30 caliber or larger, both of which must be available as factory load ammo with published ballistics from the manufacturer showing the capability of at least 500 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. That's very easy to produce. Provides that it is unlawful while deer hunting to possess or be in possession or in proximity of a rifle that is not centerfire, or be in possession or proximity of a rifle that it has a magazine or capable of making multiple shots. So This is interesting.
Slightly different than what we talked about in episode number 130. I was under the impression when I called you the other day, I was like, oh, shoot, I thought it was only straight-walled cartridges, and you...
It was.
It was,
but they made an amendment to single-wall. And so this is interesting to me. This is a huge plot twist.
Yeah.
And I have ballistic charts for what I think is going to be the most common load in Illinois, 12 and 20 gauge, and then I have ballistic charts for what I think is probably going to be the go-to round for these rifles, which is 350 Legend. But what's interesting is that this really is going to make the guys that are the one-shot shooters think about their decision. And if you go back to that podcast when we talked, I said, anyway, if a guy wants to shoot 300 yards accurately, he already is in Illinois.
Yep.
He's going to have a 45 caliber muzzle like we do,
Yep.
or he's going to have a Savage 220 like we do.
Upgraded glass. He's going to be able to touch out to 300 anyway.
Correct.
It doesn't matter.
The thing that's interesting is that this is going to eliminate a lot of the guys, and I'm not saying you're wrong if you do this, but the mag dumpers, if you will, that you know what I mean? Like, really, I guess this bill doesn't affect anybody that's on deer drives. There are guys that drive deer with muzzleloaders. We know that. I get that. But it takes away the incentive of having that second and that third follow-up shot by having a detachable magazine or a tube or something like that. The other interesting thing is that probably one of the most popular straight-wall cartridges for legal hunting is going to be the 30-30 or the 45-70, both prolific lever-action firearms. Now, lever-action firearm is a magazine tube and therefore has the ability of a secondary shot without being completely empty, deemed illegal. So you're going to find that anybody that the chance that there's an Illinois resident that has a single shot, bolt action or a single shot bolt action or breakover rifle in a straight wall cartridge is very, very slim. So these guys that are going to look at this and say, oh, I want an opportunity to shoot further, well, that chance and that ability has always been there.
Yep.
You may have an easier means to do so now, potentially. But again, I'm going to get into the ballistics. They're not much different than what we got. And actually, I think you'll find that muzzleloader ballistics are going to be far superior than all of the legal straight wall cartridges that we can use. So that is a very long-winded opening answer, but it's important to note that it has changed. Originally, it was 3-round capacity, just like standard firearm season, but it's changed. If you have any ability to make a second shot with completely unloading your gun, essentially it has to be a single shot, no secondary shot at all, no pump, you can't use a double barrel, you cannot use an auto loader, like it has to be a break action or a single shot bolt action.
So could it be this is one of the questions I have for you. We're kind of in the territory right now where I could serve it to you. Can you use a dummy magazine? Like, let's say
no.
You cannot.
You would have to have your bottom plate padded. So kind of a pad is the same thing, like your plug for your shotgun. You can take the plug out, right?
Yeah.
It's from what I gathered and what I understand. I'll get into this. It's very interesting. You cannot have that. If you have a detachable box magazine that you put, say, dummy rounds in, not acceptable because you can pop that magazine out and put a fresh one in, and the DNR officer comes up, you're like, no, I got this one filled with dummy rounds, with squib loads or whatever. Doesn't fly. Same thing with hinge plates. It has to be actually physically welded into place so you cannot load it in. And my answer to that comes from, I called the DNR in Springfield, and I talked to the legal services. They would not volunteer any information. They were as useful as a turd-flavored lollipop. I was pretty disappointed in them. I said, this bill passed last week. I have some questions about it. I'd like to know, go into depth with this. And she's like, sorry, I can't answer any questions until there's an official press release. And I'm like, well,
I was looking on an outdoor article site today, and apparently the press release is coming like on June 14th.
Correct. Yep,
June 4th. From today.
And I asked her, I said, okay, so it's single shot only. She's like, yes. And I'm like, does that mean that you have to have a single shot rifle, or can you modify a rifle to become a single shot by like blocking the mag? And she's like, well, I can't answer that until the press release. It's like, wait, what are we waiting for? Like, you've already passed it, but what, you can't tell me because I called in? Like, but anyway, it's not like you're going to make an amendment to it. That's what was frustrating when I was talking to Debbie, was her name. And I'm like, I mean, come on, Debbie. You're not going to tell me anything that's confidential. Like,
Right.
But whatever. So to answer that question, I believe that is a no, unless you physically modify your firearm to never be able to carry multiple rounds again.
Yeah, point number 2 at the bottom of this amendment is kind of ambiguous. It says, 2, be in possession of or in close proximity to a magazine that is capable of making a rifle not a single shot.
Boom.
So that would be what covers the
That's why you have to have that
dummy mag
welded. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So that's like if you have, let's say you got a Thompson Center Encore, I just picked a rifle out of my ass, and they have detachable magazines. Mm-hmm. You'd have to block that magazine, pin it into place, and then weld that magazine to the bottom of your gun. Now, some manufacturers sell different stocks that you can buy, but it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Just buy a single shot anyway. They're way more economical.
Yep.
Or buy a break action. Like Thompson Center has a full line of break action single shot rifles. I believe that's going to take the sweep in this category for me. It just doesn't make sense for a firearm manufacturer unless it's for the specific instance where the state deems it to manufacture a single shot rifle. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But Thompson Center leads the charge there because they have H&R, Harrington and Richardson used to make a very prestigious line. They're no longer around. Like their Slug Hunter is still one of the most coveted single shot shotguns in Illinois. But to my knowledge right now, mm-hmm. I believe Thompson Center is going to sweep this just because they're ahead of the game. They already offer those lines. In fact, like their FX line, if you are like our uncle-in-law, that's a stretch. Ray Olson has the FX muzzleloader. He can buy, say, a 350 Legend barrel and swap that out, and he can still hunt with that same gun during muzzleloader season and firearm season just by swapping out a barrel. So, I feel like Thompson Center has the edge here for this opportunity. Mm-hmm. Savage doesn't have any single shots. There's very few other manufacturers that even make break action, single shot rifles. A lot of them are going to have like those very fancy sporters where you got like a 30-06 with a 410 gauge on top, and all that stuff is moot point, man. It's got to be one pew.
Yeah.
So
I had a couple other questions here for you. So getting back into the straight wall cartridges, we'll go for those first. What do you think is the round that is going to be the clear front runner in Illinois, and why do you think it's going to be that round? Or maybe in the spread of like the top 2 or 3, could you rank the power like 3 and pick your number 1?
So
and say why?
I'll start with my number 3, work my way up to number 1.
Yep.
I think number 3 is going to be 30-30. 30-30 caliber is it's a large belted caliber. It's been around forever. A lot of guys are comfortable with it. They know the knockdown power. It's always been considered kind of a brush gun. It's that very, very popular lever action. Like when you guys watch Yellowstone, those guys are either running a 30-30 or a 357 Marlin lever action, right? Mm-hmm. The round hits like a hammer, but it dies out really fast.
What's the distance? Did you quantify that?
Oh, I mean, I think you could comfortably shoot 150, understanding that when I say drop like a rock, like if you have a 100-yard zero, you're probably talking about a 5 to 6 inch drop at 150 yards. Maybe even more depending on the round that you get. And they make like even subsonic rounds in 330 because 30-30, they're not very fast anyway, but if you go to those heavier grains, you want that knockdown power. I mean, now we're really talking about it tapering off fast. It just doesn't have the powder charge per bullet weight to be able to push out there and reach those distances. Okay. Same thing like shotguns. So 30-30 is ranking number 3 to me due to its nostalgic nature, the fact that it's been around forever, and I think a lot of guys just know it. Mm-hmm. Second front runner is going to be 450 Bushmaster. It's a very popular round in Iowa and other straight wall cartridges. This is the caliber that I think most guys go to when they want that knockdown power. This is the replacement to the 12 gauge. It's got that thump. It's a 45 instead of a 30 caliber, so it's a lot bigger of a bullet. Yep. I mean, some of them up in the 400 grains, but again, it's a taper off fast bullet. It's not designed to have that downrange ballistics, not necessarily energy, but ballistics further. I mean, it falls just as hard, if not harder, depending on the bullet and the cartridge that you're using as the 30-30. However, it is, like I said, the popular amenity for the guys that were wanting the 12 gauge for that knockdown power. You've got the 450, and then number 1 choice for me is going to be The 350 Legend. This was developed several years ago. It was actually created specifically for straight wall cartridge hunting in places like Iowa and Wisconsin and parts of Michigan. And I think that this has the best mix when you look at it for the brass that you're pushing, the downrange trajectory, the energy that it's going to transfer. It has the best specs. I feel like for a guy that wants to shoot furthest with this, with the least amount of felt recoil, and still have a lot of knockdown power with quality bullets that are manufactured, is going to be a 350 Legend.
Got it. I'm actually looking at a bullet path ballistics chart right now, and the 350 Legend Win PMB, I don't know what that shit all stands for, but in the 450 Bushmaster, on this guy's particular chart, his 0 is at 150, and they kind of fall in the same pattern. They fall a little bit shorter than the 444 Marlin. So that's kind of interesting. I would have not guessed that the 450 and the 350 would have fell the same way.
How far out does that ballistic chart go?
It goes to 250 is when it kind of tapers off. But at 250 yards, we'll start back at 150. Zeroed at 150. At 175, it's
that's zeroed at 150.
3.
That's
then at 200, it's minus 8.
Drops 8 inches.
Yeah, 250 minus, it's looking like 18.
So just so you understand that in 100 yards, it drops 18 inches.
Yeah.
100, because it's not a 100-yard 0. It's a 150-yard 0.
150-yard 0, yeah.
And that means you're going to be probably high, like at 50 yards, which is a pretty average shot.
Right here it says 50 yards, 3 inches high.
Yeah. I mean...
And the peak height would be at 100 yards, which would be about 4 inches high.
4 inches to me is almost enough that you have to reconsider your hold.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah.
50, 100 yards is I think, what most guys want to take their shot at.
I mean, you
right?
take the top of the heart and shoot them in the upper lungs, I guess.
Or if you hold in,
inches.
yeah, but I'm saying like you hold center lungs. Let's say you have a little bit of shooter flinch. Now that could push you up into the backstrap zone.
Or missing, yeah.
Anyway, this is the ballistic charts that I've found on the 350 Legend. So I'm not sure what you're looking at, but that the 18 inches sounds very, very accurate with 450. But there's several different grain weights here. Deer Season XP is one of the most popular ones. It's 150 grain. It's going to be your fastest and your flattest shooter. But there are also some other really nice ones. So like a PowerPoint 180. That PowerPoint is a bullet manufacturer. And then there's like the Hornady VMAX, which is 160 grains. I guess what I'm getting at is that muzzle feet per second, the 150 grains are about 2,400 feet a second. Standard 20 or 20 gauge is like around 1,900 feet a second. So we've got about a 500 feet per second advantage there. With a 100-yard 0, we're looking at the 150 grain 350 Legend to have roughly about an 8-inch drop at 200 yards.
Yeah.
That sounds more accurate to me than an 18-inch drop. But again, I don't know what chart you're looking at.
I'm just looking at a USCAA community. It's like a blog, it looks like, for a concealed carry website. I don't know.
Concealed carry for 350 Legend. Okay. So like the difference here, Remington Accu-Tips, probably the most popular or one of the most popular 12-gauge slugs. A 3-inch 20 gauge. It's a 260 grain bullet. And at the muzzle, their average was 1,900 feet a second. So again, when you're talking about the fall off at 100-yard 0 at 200 yards, they're saying that it's going to be about 13.7-inch drop. So almost twice as much. Well, it's slower. It's heavier.
Yeah.
Right? So again, here, I'll tell you right now, I mean, it's ballistically superior. It is. It's going to kick less. It's going to shoot further with 150 grains, which I think is probably more than adequate to kill a deer.
Yeah.
And you're shooting them in the breadbasket. You compare that to, say, like a 12 gauge, which is very popular. It's what we shoot, right? 385 grain, 1,900 feet per second, average muzzle velocity. Just to give you an idea, at 150 yards with a 100-yard 0, it's dropping almost 9 inches at 150. So, where these cartridges come into play is that they're a lot flatter.
Yeah.
So that's what I have.
My thing too is with our lever action, like our Savage 212, and even all the people that we
Bolt
know,
action?
which is a ton of bolt action. Sorry, ton of people that own the 212 or the 220. I mean, how often are we taking a follow-up shot?
You're
Never.
not, especially with those longer shots. That's what I said.
Never.
The most interesting thing about this bill is that it caters to the guys that want to stretch their equipment out. And I'll be interested to see how many people jump onto this, just because, like I said, the hunters that I know that have always said, we're limited, we can't kill our target deer because we can't get them in range.
Mm-hmm.
They have taken the steps to either outfit themselves with a shotgun or a muzzleloader that can be a 250 or 300-yard gun already. Now, I do say, like we talked about, the felt recoil, the ballistic charts, which whether you got your dope chart. Whether you're dialing 3 MOA or 7 MOA, it's irrelevant to me. The mechanics and the performance of the gun are the same. But it's just interesting because this really caters to, I think, a much smaller group of outdoorsmen in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And that being said, just because you buy a 350 Legend single shot doesn't mean you can throw, a $40 scope on there and shoot 300 yards. You really have to shoot your gun, find a load that it likes. Like, I used that Deer Season XP by Winchester, that 150 grain, but every gun's going to like something a little bit different. The way that your headspace is in your chamber, where your bullet hits the lands, the way that the rifling started in your barrel, it's all about finding that perfect node, which with factory ammo you're really handicapped to. So again, I mean, like I said, if a guy thinks I'm going to go buy a TC Endeavor, I think don't quote me on that, I believe is a single shot rifle, they're going to go buy a whatever scope, and I got a 300-yard gun. It's not quite that easy. You definitely still need to do the homework. You need to shoot your gun. You need to figure out what it likes, and then take it out to the range and stretch it out so you actually know your drop, and whether you're going to run a chart or if you're going to run a dial, something along those lines. It's not just slap it together and now I'm ready to go.
Right. I would think that 150 grains would be more than adequate to kill a deer. That Savage 243 that I have, that American whitetail load.
But that's way faster.
That's that's true.
Like probably almost twice as fast.
Twice as fast. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about straight-walled cartridges and your top 3 power rank.
Well, I think it was interesting. We'll talk about this. You were talking about 300 Blackout earlier.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
So this is something that I'll share to the listeners, and I advise you all, if you're thinking about doing this, contact your local DNR officer so that you don't get caught with your pants down, because it is very tricky. But there are many assault rifle configurations. I'm sorry, Armalite rifle. I just sounded like MSNBC news anchor. AR stands for Armalite rifle, not assault rifle. AR platforms that are considered pistols. Anything shorter than a 16-inch barrel is considered a pistol. That it is registered as a pistol. Your 4473, as it's serialized, goes for your background check, is considered a pistol. Like you or I, when we were younger, we could go and try to buy a 14-inch barreled rifle. That's considered a pistol, and we wouldn't be able to buy it until we're 21. So you can take those, and the 300 Blackout actually classifies as a pistol caliber
because it's less than
the casing,
1 2/5 inches long.
The casing length is, yes, and it is a 30 caliber projectile.
Yep.
The caveat here is that the overall length of the firearm, I believe, I don't know this for a fact, I'm generalizing, has to be shorter than 27 inches. Now that can be done because you can buy or build say a 8-inch, 8.5-inch 300 Blackout, barreled Blackout with a very short brace on the end of it, and it will be quite a bit less than that overall length. And so that's interesting, and you then can use 3-round capacity. You're not going to have very good ballistic because your powder burn is going to be very limited. You're going to have a hell of a fireball out the end. It'll be fun and maybe something neat to check off your bucket list one day, maybe, to say that you shot a deer with a 300 Blackout pistol. But yeah, it's like a loophole, and there's nothing they can really do about it. But again, I really advise you that if this is what you want to do, that you get a hold of your local DNR officer to make sure that you're right, because obviously, if you ever were to get pulled over, legal as it be, there's still going to be some red flags when you're like, yeah, can I check your gun? And you're like, sure. Pull out your AR, and they're like, you just want to make sure you have your ducks in a row. Like, yes, I talked to Officer X, measured the overall length of the gun. Here is my 5-round magazine or my 3-round magazine. You know what I mean?
Yep.
My 5-round magazine with a block in it. Like, here you go.
So would that be the only bottleneck cartridge that you could use that's kind of like newish that you can think of? Are there any other ones in that like 300 blackout category that are 30 caliber or larger, but also less than an inch and a quarter?
7.62 by 39. It is the Russian clone to 300 blackout, and they're like 2/3 cheaper to shoot. So, but they're almost identical. 7.62 is the diameter, so like a 308 is 7.62 by 51.
Yep.
So it's a 30 caliber projectile. It's very similar ballistically. It's a little bit different. Like the magazine has to be angled to accept the caliber, but completely doable. And you can also buy ARs in large pistol calibers. Like you can, a lot of guys were excited because you can buy or build ARs in 450 Bushmaster, 350 Legend, and you can, make them really accurate shooting by putting on precision barrels and longer length barrels and nice triggers in them. But without some severe alterations, you can't make that a single shot.
Okay. Yeah, that single shot thing just kind of...
It's a big wrench.
I was really considering, just because of how much I dislike shooting the 212. Of kicking
and it
it
still
over.
might be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe it'll get amended.
Well, even not. I mean, like you said it earlier. I can't remember a time, and correct me if I'm wrong, where me and you have shot multiple times at a deer.
No, I can't remember.
And we're not talking ourselves up. We just know it's like a one-shot deal, Like, I'm not saying that we haven't ever missed or made a bad shot. Like, it happens, but I
feel like it's more common for a Western style hunter. Where
because
your terrain is very open and the tracts of land you're hunting are very large. But, I mean, most dudes hunting a 40 or an 80, you're going to get a shot.
You shoot, and they're out of you can't shoot them anymore.
Yeah.
They're in the timber. They're over the hill. They're wherever,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's still very plausible. Seriously.
Yeah. Okay. So bottleneck cartridges, there's only a couple that work for the straight walls. Your pick is still the 350 Legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your number one pick. And you think Thompson Center is going to dominate the category because they've already established themselves with what rifles, did you say?
I'll look it up. I thought it was the Endeavor, I'm sorry, but I could be wrong. So...
Boo-de-doo-doo, Thompson Center, Encore Endeavor. 50 caliber, 28-inch fluted barrel, stainless steel finished with black composite flex stock. Where is this? Impact Guns.
So, bolt action, no. Semi-automatic. Okay, here we go. It would be the Pro Hunter. So that's the only one that they make is the Pro Hunter.
Got ya.
Yep. So
that'd be the gun.
The Pro Hunter platform, correct. So
is that a brake barrel?
Yep.
Nice.
Brake action. Yep.
So
their contender is that pistol that I was telling you about that, I mean, like our buddy Jake. Remember he had multiple barrels. He has that one in a 22 Hornet. Well, he also has one in like 30 big ash thing, but yeah, yep. It's the Pro Hunter is what it is. So,
okay, so a little bit of research to still do the legalities of a magazine. I would assume that, like you said, it would have to be, like the magazine would have to be welded or bolted onto the bottom to not permit another magazine from being flopped in there. And then would the area where you compress the bullets into the magazine, would that have to be stopped? How would you stop that?
You put a permanent block in it.
Oh.
So you...
Got it.
The way that you do that is you take the magazine. If it's a magazine cover, you take the bottom off of it. You remove the spring. You put a
block in it.
Literally a block in it.
Like a
piece of plastic, piece of wood. Put the magazine bottom back on. Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Dang.
And then the thing is though is that even after you do that, you have to have some way to affix that magazine in there permanently, right?
Yep.
Because the whole reason is you could take your legal mag pretty easy when you're walking out of the timber and throw that in.
One of the big benefits I felt like when I was, thinking about all this and maybe making a switch over was the lack of recoil. I mean, that's
especially
really,
with
really
the
appealing.
ability to put a compensator on the end of it. After me taking the dive into this in the guns, I mean, there are muzzle brakes and then there are actual compensating devices. I mean, there's flash compensators, sound compensators, but more than anything, there's recoil compensators. And depending on the design of the baffle and the way that the brake or the compensator works, it makes a huge difference. Some of these brakes can reduce felt recoil by up to 60 or 70%. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Find a shotgun that's got a threaded barrel.
Not a lot.
I don't know of one. They're internally threaded for freaking, choke tubes, but not externally. And then find a manufacturer that's going to make a great big obnoxious, like that traditional Barrett 50 cal
1
brake.
pound brake.
Yeah,
maybe more.
Well, you know what like the brake looks like on my
Paramount.
It's a big obnoxious thing, but it works.
Heavy as shit.
So I'm looking right here. So the TC, it is the Encore Pro Hunter. So I was kind of right, kind of wrong. It's called the Encore Pro Hunter, and they've got it listed MAP pricing at $850. And that right now today you can buy that in a 4570 single shot. And I'm just going right off of here. So there's probably some other ones that might have some other calibers in here. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be addition to others as well. But this is just one that I found right here.
Real quick.
All
right. So we've talked about the dummy magazine versus no magazine. Another benefit, I mean, talking about ammo availability, I know that every November hits and every slug gun hunter or something like that wants Remington Accu-Tips, which are, we've been shooting for about 15 years now. It's an excellent slug, and we've just had a lot of good luck with those slugs, and you just can't find them anywhere. So talking about the availability of the straight wall cartridges like the 450, the 350, and what was the third one you said? 450,
30-30.
350, the 30-30. What's the available supply?
All widely available.
widely
Especially when Iowa went to straight wall cartridges for guys in Illinois. I mean, if you go even in Illinois, like Tyson's in Davenport, they have boxes upon boxes of 350 Legend and 450 Bushmaster. Those are the two most popular, right?
Got it.
350 is less recoil for their shooting. 450 is like the 12 gauge equivalent. But since it says rifle cartridge, guys are like, oh, it's better.
Yeah, right.
Right? But I just looked this up. Check this out. So Thompson Center has, this is very economical, called a Scout rifle, single shot, break action. Their MSRP is $350. So extremely economical.
It's cheaper than the Savage
by about
quite a
half.
bit.
Yeah. So and there's also another one. Henry looks like they launched one early fall last year. It's more of a youth rifle, but it's a single shot 30-30 as well. So there are some options out there. I think the amenities of that Pro Hunter over the Scout are justified for the price difference. But again, for a guy that wants to get into it, it comes with the Picatinny rail right on top, but there's no iron sight, so it is scoped.
You're gonna need
scope option only. But there you go.
With the availability of ammo too, I mean, it's got to be more economical to shoot. Like, what's a box of?
For sure,
350 Legends cost?
Probably anywhere from $16 to $25, depending on what you buy.
Maybe, how many shells would come
probably
in that?
More than that. I bet you could buy like some pretty generic full metal jackets for like $17-18, but I bet you it's probably around $1.50 around. I would say is par,
Much
considering shotgun slugs are five
or six.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back into it, like if somebody was listening to this and they were like, "All right, Garrett, recap it for me one more time. The 350 versus the 450. What would you buy and why would you buy it? If you were going to make the change for yourself."
I would. Right now, I'd have to do some more research on, but just in like the 10 minutes here that I've been scrolling on my phone, I'd look at that TC Pro Hunter. I'm sure that they're going to offer, if they don't already, because they already have the Scout and 350 Legend. I would buy it in 350 Legend. The reason is the Pro Hunter has a longer barrel. Longer barrels equate to further more powder burn,
better accuracy, right?
Yep, it controls your bullet longer, but more importantly, you get that higher powder burn, which creates higher velocity, which is what I want for a flatter trajectory and more energy. The TC Hunter also has a much better stock on it. I think you're going to find it has a better recoil pad and more ergonomics for better shooting, the way that your hand gets positioned onto the grip. I think the 450 is a great option for a guy that, maybe doesn't have those big fields to hunt, that is going to take those 100 yards, maybe 125 yards in less shots. Recoil is going to be maybe a little bit more for most guys, not enough to make a big difference, you know. But there's a ton of bullet options out there. I think they're going to hit a little bit harder than the 350 Legend just because of the weight.
Yep.
And I think 30-30 is the big difference I think between like the 30-30 and the 350 Legend is going to be bullet design. 30-30 is designed around a lever action gun. I would be really surprised if there's even any single shot 30-30s out there because that cartridge has been necked down and it's got that big belt so that when you work that action of that lever, it can get up there and feed. And actually the face of the bullet is shortened so that when it does feed, it doesn't catch. Especially like your hollow points. Like when you come over next, I'll show you like the 30-30 round and compare it to like a 308.
Yep.
30 caliber bullets, like technically you could reload them with the same 30 caliber bullets, but the design is way different. And those 30 caliber bullets are more of like a chop tail, not like a boat tail or a dovetail.
Yep.
So it looks like the cartoon bullet, if you will, where it's like a flat back, like a shotgun slug.
Yeah.
And the longer bullets, the longer the bullet, the higher the ballistic coefficient. The higher the ballistic coefficient, the best way to explain this is the slower the arc.
Yep.
And the less opportunity for wind drift. So just bullets, comparing bullets to bullets, not like casings and shells, but the actual things that are flying out of the barrel, they're a lot different.
So you would go with the 350 for that reason, just being a little bit more flat shooting than the 450.
I think it's quite a bit. I could be wrong, but I'd be surprised if we actually saw some other comparisons because the 450, like it looks like your pinky finger. Like it's just like it's kind of like a cut down 410. Yeah. So it doesn't have a lot of mustard behind it to really create those. I would be so shocked if the 350 falls off as hard as the 450.
Okay. How many people do you think you could see taking the switch from the 220, 212 realm because that's been just so white hot in Illinois, especially for the last 10, 12 years? Do you think a lot of people are going to make the switch or not really?
I don't think so, and here's why. You know, like Austin Meyer, homie guy on our team, they've invested some money in their glass on that, and like you know, you just created a platform that can do what you want, that makes a 200-yard shot very easy and further. I guess it would seem a little repetitive to go out and buy a whole new gun and a whole new piece of glass and do this again, unless you just retire your shotgun, you take the glass off of that and reuse it. I could see that happening, but I don't know. I don't know because like I'm thinking of the guys in our circle that do want to shoot further. They all have muzzleloaders, and they're all real picky about them. You know, they've already got a gun that does it. They've killed a ton of deer with them. I don't see them switching for that reason either. And then again, too, you know, you have that same gun that you can use during firearm and muzzleloader. Yeah, because a lot of the guys, I think, the muzzleloaders perform better. An example being my 45 caliber Paramount with a 26-inch barrel. When I chronographed it, its 5-shot average is about 2,600 feet a second. Well, that's pretty darn good. Yeah. You know, it eliminates having to have, I need a long-range firearm and a long-range muzzleloader. Because heaven knows, you know, you go and you build this really cool single shot and then you won't freaking use it and you'll fall over into muzzleloader season where you end up taking your 200-yard shot at that late season white. You know what I mean?
That's another good point to
just one and done.
One and done. You get a muzzleloader. Be done with it.
But it does. I mean, it has its place. The guys that were on the fence, or maybe some new hunters that are coming on the scene, I could see them making the switch to this. For youth, it's a fantastic option. Yep. As I'm sure even for like an 8, 9, 10-year-old, I've never been with one shooting, but I'm sure that even a 220 would 2 3/4 is going to
feel about pretty crappy for you. Yeah. So. All right. I feel like we adequately covered this. So hopefully in this episode we clarified some things about Illinois House Bill 4386 because it has been amended since we spoke about it in episode number 130 into some would you rathers. Number 1. Would you rather shoot a single shot straight walled cartridge rifle this deer season or our slug gun with no scope? Only iron sights.
It's straight wall cartridge for sure. The glass makes the gun. I do want to add before we get into any more that it is interesting. This bill does not become effective until January 1st. So it will not be legal this hunting season.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes as much sense, like I said, as a turd-flavored lollipop.
Yeah, that's pretty dumb.
But then again, according to the deadline, you can still use a straight wall cartridge for the late antlerless only seasons. I don't know why when they said let's make the effective date in the middle of deer season.
Now, you can bet your ass 100. I bet my
there's going to be people out there hunting with straight wall cartridges.
No, I wasn't even going to say that. I was going to say if they legalized the straight wall cartridge for the late antlerless doe season, and like, yeah, you can shoot a buck just like a CWD county. I'd be like, yep, I'm buying one of those.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how many bucks I've seen in like those weekends.
It's because our firearm season is
not. Yeah, our firearm seasons suck. But
anyway,
okay, number 2.
Yeah.
Would you rather shoot an aoudad or bowfish an alligator?
Ooh, that is a really good one. Wow, this is one of your better ones. A
Texas sheep.
I'm going to say alligator.
Okay. Would you rather shoot your number 1 target buck or any species of sheep, all expenses paid,
buck
next year? Okay.
I guess. Shoot. That's another, dude, you're stacking them up because here's a reason. Like sheep hunts, I'm going to tell you, they're $40, $50.
It's a once in a lifetime thing for
more. Oh, the tag is once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's just like it's not feasible for 95% of hunters to do that. Even if you get the tag or you have some way to buy the tag,
right?
It's so expensive. But it would be nothing like we've ever done.
Yeah, it would be incredible.
I'd still shoot my target buck.
Okay. Would you rather hunt a red stag or an elk this next season?
Man, these are really good.
With a bow,
these are so
if you
good.
want.
I'd probably an elk.
Okay. Would you rather shoot a 7 GPI arrow or 13 this
13.
coming whitetail season?
13.
What if I change that to 17? Does that exist?
I don't know. That's heavy.
That's heavy. Is really heavy.
I would still go with the heavier arrow.
Then 7?
7's just so light. I mean, it'd be...
It's light.
Well...
It's like those flat lines.
I just don't know if you'd be able to get them to stabilize because I could add weight to the front.
What were those flat lines? What were they?
7.1.
7, yeah.
And dude, that was like back when I had the Monster and like I didn't know. I cut them, glued my inserts in, and those were screaming me fast, man.
Yeah.
But
shooting.
I think even if you had like a 7 GPI arrow and you added 200 grains to it, I don't know if it'd stabilize. Like, I don't know how that would affect the arrow. Having all that weight in the front, I'd have to wrap the last 2 feet of it with
make sure
vinyl.
It didn't break.
Yeah. I'd take the after what we've learned in the
It'd
last.
be like shooting a cannonball with a straw attached to the ass end of it.
Yeah, you have to have veins like 6 inches long.
Yeah, like one of those Nerf things.
Yes,
you know, one of those fucking. All right. Well. Last announcement before we go here. The Last Breath launch party is booked for the Adler Theater Friday, August 19th. Probably going to be somewhere in the realm of 6 o'clock, open the doors, 7 o'clock films roll, something like that. So we're in the process of booking that this week. We have had the date soft booked for a while, and we're going to go ahead and execute that. So mark your calendars again for Friday, August 19th.
I've got one last thing, and this is
6 p.m.
Yeah. Yep, Brown. Super excited for this year. It should be a banger-ang. But also, lastly, Father's Day is approaching us, and Moultrie asked us to extend their Father's Day sale. This is a pretty good gig. Starting on the 9th, which will be happen by the time this launches, all the major retailers, you can find their new Delta Cam for the Delta base, and it's $20 off. So that means it's $80 cell cam. So if you're thinking about picking one up
through June 19th,
correct. So that's their Father's Day sale. If you guys are thinking about picking up a cell cam for Dad, save yourself $20. It's usually $100 cameras, $79.99.
Ooh, they have refurbished A-series cameras on here.
That is correct. That's the other half of it. You can take $10 off all refurbished cameras, starting on the 9th.
That's intriguing. I love those little A-series cameras.
They're little
workhorses.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully we clarified something about the new Illinois House bill. If you are not an Illinoisan, sorry about that. We'll see you next time. Don't waste it.